صلى الله عليك يا مولاي وابن مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة، ويا باب نجاة الأمة، يا غريب يا شهيد كربلاء، يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ولزينب نوح لفقد شقيقها، تدعوه يا ابن الزاكيات الركع، اليوم أصبغ في عزاك ملابسي سودا وأسكب هاطلات الأدمع. The poet, brothers and sisters, visualizes the atmosphere on the night after the martyrdom of Imam Hussein salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. It is as if he is trying to paint a particular picture or scenario or atmosphere as to what Sayyidah Zainab may have said on that particular night. As you know, perhaps the night of Al-Wahsha, or the night after the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, if it was to be classified in any terms, I would say it is perhaps the darkest, the most difficult night to bear after the martyrdom of Imam Hussein salawatullahi wasalamu alayhi. I'm sure the Prophet would have been bereaved to know what has happened to the women folk of Imam Hussein salawatullahi wasalamu alayhi, and the children of the house of prophethood. Sayyidah Zahra is in a similar predicament. Imam Ali salawatullah wasalamu alayhi is also in the same predicament. So these are verses of poetry. Basically says that Zainab is lamenting her brother, calling him, O son of those noble women who are always in the act of prostration. She says, today, O my brother, I dye my clothes black in lamenting your departure, and I let my tears flow without stopping. اليوم شبوا نارهم في منزلي. Today they let my tent in fire. وتناهبوا ما فيه حتى برقعي. They looted everything, O Hussein, from the tent. Even they took my chadar. You know, these are the case and situation of what happened to Imam Hussein's family after. You know, we have riwayat that says that when the army of Umar ibn Saad attacked the tent of Imam Hussein's woman, in particular the tent of Sayyidah Zainab, when Imam Hussein left Medina, they brought with them the remaining items that they had inherited from their mother Fatima salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. Among this item was a particular, I don't know how to describe it, but it is something that Sayyidah Zahra used to use in order to knit with. She used to knit garments. So she brought Sayyidah Zainab that particular product with her. They looted even that thing from the tents of Zainab. So much so that Imam Zain al-Abidin, it is stated that when they finally were released by Yazid to go back to Medina, he asked for all the items that were looted from the tents, including that particular item. This is the kind of attachment Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhim ajma'een had towards one another. So it's like a poet is trying to visualize and put in words what was happening. On the lips of Sayyidah Zainab, he's saying that they even took her burqa. Burqa in Arabic means the face covering. Literally it means the face covering. Then he goes on to say, Al-yawm qaduni bidhullin ya akhi. Today they led me with a humiliation. You know, in the riwayah of Imam Ar-Rida, salawatullahi wa salamu alayh, it says that the day of Ashura had caused lacerations to our eyelids and made us cry. And then he says, and in that day, adalla azizana, that day has humiliated the one which had pride. So the ulama were examining this hadith by Imam Ar-Rida, salawatullah wa salamu alayh, to understand what was Imam Ar-Rida referring to when he said, وَأَذَلَّ عَزِيزَنَا, and it humiliated the pride one among us. They said, is it Imam Hussein? They said, no, because he was martyred on the plains of Karbala. Is it Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas? No, because he was always killed. Is it any of the members who were slain on the plains of Karbala? They said no, because dhilla in this particular context is referring to someone who's alive, someone who's still alive and led with humiliation. They said the one that the Imam was referring to in this particular situation was none other than Sayyidah Zainab. Salamullah alayha, who when she was led towards the last hours after the tents were burnt, as we will learn shortly, she looked towards the Euphrates where Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas was lying down, and she called out towards him, you were my guarantor. You are the one that when I left Medina, you came and you placed your thigh and leg in front of me so that I could ride my camel. And now you are laying down without hands, with your head split open, with an arrow planted in your eye. So tell me, who is gonna come and make me ride my camel? This is the dhul. This is the kind of humiliation the Imam salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh was referring to. The poet continues saying, فَأَجَابَهَا مِنْ فَوْقِ شَاهِقَةِ الْقَنَى. The head of Imam Hussein responded to the cries of Zainab, saying, قُضِيَ الْقَضَى بِمَا جَرَى فَاسْتَرْجِعِ. It has already been distant, O my sister. So keep saying the words, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un, and look after the orphans in the same way I used to look after the orphans. Indeed, Laylatul Wahsha is one of the most severe nights on the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. On that night, the women folk and the family of Imam Hussein remained without a mahram. There was no one with them except Al-Alil, the Marid Imam, Imam Zain al-Abidin salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. The poet also visualized that scene so that we can go into the actual scenario of what happened on the night. He said, Ya khayla al-a'wajiyya, la barakallah beach. You know, the horses that were used to trample the body of Imam Hussein was called A'wajiyya. He said, oh horses of A'wajiyya, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never bless you anymore. Why? فَقَدْ رَضَّيْتِ جَسَدَ الْحُسَيْنِ, for you trampled the body of Hussein. In fact, the poet says, you did not just trample the body of Hussein. فَقَدْ رَبَّيْتِ التَّوْرَاةَ وَالْقُرْآنَ وَالْإِنْجِيلِ. You trampled the Torah, the Injil, and the Quran, because he was the manifestation of all this religion. How? Where do we get this from? Read Ziyarat Warith. Ya Warith Adam, Ya Warith Nuh, Ya Warith Ibrahim, Ya Warith Musa, Ya Warith Isa. In what things did the Imam inherit Musa and Isa? He inherited the Torah and the Injil. And Ya Waritha Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So he said, O A'wajiyya horses, you did not just trample the body of Hussein, you trampled the Torah and the Quran and the Injil. It is stated, brothers and sisters, that when the battle of Karbala settled and the night had approached, Umar ibn Sa'd ordered his henchmen to bring him an arrow and an arch, and to bring him fire. He let out one of his arrows and he said, bear witness to the Amir, meaning Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, that I am the first to let fire in the tents of Hussein. He shot his arrow on the tent of the woman of Imam Hussein. When they realized that the fire began to eat the tents up, they began to run for their life from the tents, and the rest of the tents were lit on fire by his army. It is stated in the books of history that as they launched the attack on the remaining members of the family of Hussein, 7 children were trampled. 7 children. 7 children were trampled in that attack. 2 of them were girls from the daughters of Imam al-Hassan, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. The history named only 5 of them. I have the names. 2 of them were the daughters of Imam al-Hassan. 2 of them were boys from the children of Aqil, a brother of Imam Ali, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. They were trampled in the launch of the horses by the army of Umar ibn Sa'd. As the army approached the tent and they lit fire in the tent, Zainab salamullah alayha came out of her tent and went towards the tent of Imam Zainul Abidin. Habib ibn Muslim says, I saw a woman cladded in black standing at the opening of a tent where the fire was drawing near to her. I approached her and said, Amatallah, the fire is close to you. She did not pay attention. It is as if she was perplexed by something severe that had taken her attention and concentration away from the fire. Then I drew closer more to her, and by now the fire had lit part of her abaya. I said, Amatullah, the fire has taken part of your abaya. She looked towards me and she said, Ya Zalim, O oppressor, I am aware that my clothes are on fire, but inna lana alilun dakhil al-khayma, but we have a sick man inside the tent, unable to rise and walk by himself. He said, I left her to her ordeal. It was moment later that she brought a man while she was walking backward towards the opening of the tent. Only I realized that when she carried him out, he was Ali ibn al-Hussein, Zainul Abidin. Ajarakumullah ya mu'mineen. May Allah reward you for your patience on this plight, the martyrdom of Imam Hussein and the looting of these tents. The henchmen of Umar ibn Sa'd were given orders to loot everything in the tent. They attacked whatever remains of the tent after they have turned into ashes. One of the girls ran out of the tent. Hamid ibn Muslim, he said, I saw a man approach her. He saw that she was wearing some earrings in her ear. He didn't bother to unopen the earrings. He snatched them from her earrings and began to cry. The girl looked at him and said, you steal my earrings and you loot them and then you cry. Look at his logic, brothers and sisters. He said, yes, because if I don't take them, someone else will take them. Ajarakumullah ya mu'mineen. Another girl was running out from the tent. Hamid ibn Muslim says, I ran after her because her clothes were on fire. I wanted to turn off the fire in her dress. She stood towards me under the horse and she said, Ya Sheikh, do you know the Quran? Or have you read the Quran? He said, yes, I have. She said, did you read what Allah says in the Quran? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wa amma al-yatima fala taqhar. As for the orphan, do not suppress or mistreat. He said, surely I did. She said, Ana yatimatul Hussein. I am the orphan of Hussein. Then the women and the children went towards Imam Zainul Abidin. They said, Ya Himana, O our protector, Ya Baqiyat al-Madin, O the one who remains from our forefathers, what do you advise that we do in such situation? Imam Zain al-Abidin said to Zainab, let each mother of yours hold the hand of a child and run into this desert for your life. You know, the poet says, this Zainab Salamullah alayha, no one used to see her shadow. Now she is being paraded in front of the army of Umar ibn Sa'd. Ajarakumullah ya mu'mineen. May Allah reward you, O believers, for your patience and steadfast on the plight of Ahlul Bayt. Now the women folk have been collected after they ran away at the instruction of Imam Zainul Abidin. He told his sister Zainab, "Oh Zainab, go and collect all the women now and the children." When she brought them to the tent that has been burnt, yani the place of the tents, where the tents were shielding these women and children, but now they lay sitting down under the sky. While Zainab was going out looking for the woman, she would call out the mother of Al-Qasim, "Where are you?" She would say, "I'm here, O Zainab, trying to lay next to my youthful child Qasim. Perchance he could hear my cries and my du'as." She would go again and call another woman by name. She would respond, except one woman. Zainab would call out for her and she would not respond. All of a sudden, someone riding his horse comes from the camp of Umar ibn Saad. Zainab says to this warrior and rider, "Where are you coming to? And on your way, did you see a woman in the plains of Karbala that is missing?" He said, "No, but I noticed some black shadow in this particular direction." She goes towards that shadow. As she approaches, she says, "Rabab, I've been calling you all day, Rabab." Then Rabab responds, "Yes, oh Zainab, I am here. I am with my Hussein and my infant child." She says, "Oh Rabab, what brought you in the middle of the night to this particular place?" She said, "Oh Zainab, do not blame me. But when they gathered us and collected us in that place where there used to be a tent, and they finally gave us water, I felt the milk coming to me. I came towards my son who was on the chest of his father. I held him and I began to say, 'Oh my darling son, if you still have life, your mother now has milk for you.' Then she grabbed Ali al-Asghar and wanted to take him back with her. Zainab says, 'Oh Rabab, leave the child with his father. The women, if they see what happened to him, they will collapse from pain and from suffering. They had suffered enough.' Then she leaves the child on the chest of Imam Hussein and began to go back with Sayyida Zainab. They reach the place where the children are. Here the poet visualizes what happened. Brothers and sisters, when they brought the water, the children initially refused to drink the water. So they would pass the water to one another. And every time they would pass the water across, that child that receives the water says, 'I want to go to my Uncle Hussein, because my Uncle Hussein died thirsty. I don't want to drink that water.' Finally, they do drink the water, except Ruqayya. Salamullah alayha. Sayyida Zainab says Ruqayya ran towards her father, Imam Hussein salawatullah wa salamu alayha, with the whatever water they gave her or container they gave her. She went towards the body and she looked towards the head of Imam Hussein. The poet says it is as if a conversation ensued between Ruqayya and Imam Hussein. So he puts it in a lyric. He says, "Ya Laylat al-Hadi Ashar, Ahish Udhum Hallayla." He said, "Oh, the night of the 11th, what a great night you are. من جابوا الماي وغدت ضجت بحريم العيلة. When they brought the water, there was commotion among the family of Hussein salawatullah wa salamu alayh. ركضت رقية على السقا. Ruqayya went towards that water. ونادت أوقف يا سقاي, or the one who is offering water, stop, don't give me water. She's saying stop, I don't want that water. لو تاخذ الماء وترد أول الرمح تمشي وياي. Either you take the water back or you come with me toward Hussein salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. Why Ruqayya? Why do you want to go to your father? Look what she says. هل يوم ثالث والدي. Today it's the third day that my father has not drank water. عطشان ما شرب ماي. أغرف له بجفوف العذب بلشن أروي غليلة. She said, maybe if you put the water in my little palms, I could reach that head on top of the lands and I would satisfy his thirst. يعز عليكم يا مؤمنين وما بين أبوها والسقا تجيب الدرب وترده. She's saying, the poet is so clever in highlighting how the incident happened. She said because of her tiny hand, when she would go to that waterman to collect the water, by the time she gets to the head, the water seeps out from her hands because she can't hold it. She's trembling at the sight of seeing the head of her father, Imam Hussein salawatullah wa salamu alayh. So she goes back, says that she goes back, tries again. طفلة وغصنها من العطش ذبلان مثل الوردة. He says she is like a tiny little girl, just like a little seedling that has not been watered for days. Now the blossoming flowers of hers have withered down because of lack of water. ومن وصلت ذاك الرمح قلت عليها الحيلة. When she finally reached the lands, she was unable to draw down the head, nor she was able to raise herself to reach that head. بالخيزران تعلقت تحني الرمح ما بيها. She held to that particular stick that was holding the head of Imam Hussein, but she wanted to draw the head down. The head would not come down. She tries to climb, she can't climb that particular stick. حاولت يا ما حاولت رفعت شعب رجليها. الله أكبر. Says she tried so much but she couldn't, so she tried something else. You know what she did? She stepped on her tippy toe. So maybe that would raise her up towards the head. قعدت تحن يم الرمح وسهرت الليل بحيلة. She stayed next to that head all night trying to figure out a way so that she could bring that head down. يبكي على بكاها الرمح. When finally the lands realized what is happening to Ruqayya, the lands began to cry. It's metaphoric, brothers. The lands began, the speed that the head of Imam Hussein was on began to cry with Ruqayya. من شافها هدها العنى وقامت تقوم وتهوى حتى بعدوها توسلت بلكن بقايا مروة. She began to plead with the army of Umar ibn Sa'd, saying maybe some morals are left in their hearts so that they would bring down the lands. She couldn't do it. She exhausted every possible avenue to reach the head. She couldn't. She says then she began to plead with the army of Umar ibn Sa'd. What was the response? قاموا يضحكون عليها. They began to mock her because she was short and she couldn't reach the head. حسبالهم طفلة عمر جابوا لها لعابة. They thought because she was young, maybe she wanted a toy. So they made a toy for her to play with it in order that she would leave the father and go. Subhanallah. Then she sat all night sitting and pleading with them. When she sat there, all of a sudden Zainab came towards her. She said, oh Ruqayya, now this is the real part. She sat next to her father and she was trying to talk to Imam Hussein to give him water. Then Zainab approached Ruqayya because she was the missing girl, because they wanted to collect all of them in order that they would proceed towards Sham the following day. She came towards Ruqayya and she said, Ruqayya, we've been looking for you. They brought water to the tent and you ran. Where are you? She said, I couldn't figure myself drinking without my father. Imam Hussein salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi ajarakumullah ya mu'mineen. When it was the following day, now it is pitch dark. The night has fallen down. The women folk and the children sleeping under the sky. There is no more tent. Every time a woman would want to stand and go somewhere, the henchmen of Umar ibn Sa'd would use the back of a spear to knock them between their shoulders or on their hands to bring them back to where they are, because they didn't want to lose any of them at the instruction of Umar ibn Sa'd. Can you imagine this, brothers and sisters? These women are helpless, without any protector, without anyone to come and be with them. No Rasulullah, no Ali ibn Abi Talib, no Imam Hussein who was their protector and lion, no Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, no Ali al-Akbar, no companions of Imam Hussein salawatullahi wa salamu alayhim ajma'een. They are all slain on the plain of Karbala. And the day comes when they need to move them now towards Kufa. The riwayah says they brought very weak camels. They started tying them one by one. Your Imam Zainul Abidin began to help the women folk to ride the camels, although himself needed help. So they all rode the camels. It came to the turn of Zainab. Again she looked towards the Mashra'ah. She looked towards Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. She said, Ya Kafili, oh my guarantor, oh my protector, Abu Fadl, is this the time to sleep neither euphrates? This is the time to be by your sister's side. This is the time that you lend your sister's hand to ride her camel, just like you led her out of Medina. There was no answer coming from the side of Abu Fadl. Imam Zain al-Abidin says, Amma, have mercy on yourself. He helps Sayyidah Zainab to ride the camel. He rides behind them. Now all of them are in chains. Imam Zain al-Abidin in particular, they did something so awful to him, brothers and sisters. They put something around his neck called al-Jami'ah. Al-Jami'ah is a cylinder that is made from metal, but it was not your average cylinder metal that you put around the neck of a prisoner. How do we know that? When the caravan reached Sham eventually, it says there was a companion of the Prophet, his name Sahal ibn Sa'd as-Sa'idi. He approaches the caravan. He happened to be in Medina When he arrived, he happened to be in Medina and then he came to Sham. When he arrived in Sham, the riwayah says there was decoration everywhere, but it was not Eid time. So he asked, is there a Eid that the people of Sham know, that the people of Medina don't know? They told him no. But today the renegades are arriving in Sham. He said, the renegades? Who are these renegades? They said, this is a small army that went against the Amir, Yazid ibn Muawiyah, and they entered into a battle against him, and today they are led as prisoners of war into the streets of Sham. While this conversation is taking place, the caravan arrives. So he draws closer to caravan to see who are these people, because he was told they were Ajam and Turk. Yani they were foreigners and from, Turkey. So he said, I drew closer. When I drew closer, these faces were familiar. He said, I saw a woman leading the children slowly so that the chain is not, pulled, so that they would not fall down. But despite her attempts, because of the way they were led and the way they were beaten by the whip, some of the children would fall down. Because they pulled down these chains, that particular cylinder around the neck of Imam Zayn al-Abidin would also be pulled. So I looked towards that woman. Only to my surprise, I realized it's Zainab. Salamullah alayha. I look towards the crowd, I say, woe unto you. These are the Ajam and the Turk you are talking about. These are the family of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So I approach Zainab. He said, Mawlati, is there anything I can do so that I can offer the little? She said, do you have money, O Sa'al? He said, yes, I do. She said, go pay the person who's holding the lance with the head of my brother Hussein to stay away from the caravan, so that men would not look at us when we enter, and they will be preoccupied with looking at the head of my brother Hussein salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. He said, I did that. I went and I paid that man money, and I told him, move away from the caravan. Then I came back and I said to her, anything else? She said, for me, no, but go to your master. He said, where is my master? She said, he's at the end of the chains. He said, I approached him and I saw him wearing something red. I said to myself, is it possible in all this commotion and pain, my master is wearing red? Red is a color for celebration. He said, when I approached Zainul Abidin, I realized that the red color was his blood. When I came to him, I saw that this cylinder around his neck had protruding nails in it. So they put nails every time Imam Zayn al-Abidin would move his neck, or he'd pull the chain so the children would not fall. These nails would go into his neck all the way, brothers and sisters, from Kufa to Sham. عظم الله لكم الأجر. Look what Imam Zayn al-Abidin says to Sahl ibn Sa'd al-Sa'idi. He says, oh my master, is there anything I can do? He said, yes. Oh Sahl, do you have any money on you? He said, yes, I have little left after I paid the man to move away from the woman with the head of Imam Hussein. He said, Barakallahu bek, go and buy extra materials. Go and buy more fabrics and give them to our women folk and clad them with it, so the men would not look at our women. Rahim Allah man nada wa Zainaba wa Aliya wa Ghariba wa محمدا وعليا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. 5 times from the bottom of your hearts, brothers and sisters, for all the marid, for all who have asked us to pray for them, for your safety, for us, so that Allah grants us the opportunity to live so that we can commemorate this plight of Hussein salawatullahi wa salamu alayh and be in his service. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amman yujibul muttarra idha da'ah wa yakshifu as-su'. Amman yujibul muttarra idha da'ah wa yakshifu as-su'. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. أمن يجيب The last one with the loudest of your voices. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء بحق محمد وآل محمد وبحرمة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.